Hey guys, Mr. Breen here, and in this video I'll be talking about the money multiplier. Okay, let's say we have a situation in which Fred puts $1,000 in the bank, and banks hold 20% of the deposits that they hold in reserve. Now they're going to lend the other 80% out. So Fred puts $1,000 in the bank. So there's $1,000, and she feels like she has $1,000. Okay, so now what does the bank do with it? Well, they lend out $800. Now Fred still believes or feels like she has $1,000, and indeed she does. But now the bank lends $800 out to someone else, and they feel like they have $800 to spend. They probably do spend it, but that money ends up back in the bank, and the bank, there's an $800 bank deposit, and that deposit, 20% of that is held, and that means that 640, another 80% of 800, is lent out to people, and then eventually that finds its way into banks, and then, let's see, what's another, oh goodness, let's see, $128 is going to be lent out, or is going to be kept in reserve. That's 20% of 640. So now we have $512, okay, and so on. And this is going to repeat itself and repeat itself and repeat itself, and ultimately we'll have some amount in the economy that I'm not going to tell you what it is right now, even though I know, but it's definitely going to be greater than $1,000. So because banks are lending money out when they receive deposits, the amount of money in the economy exceeds the monetary, what we're going to call the monetary base. So the monetary money supply, okay, the amount of money that is actually circulating in the economy is greater than the monetary base, how much actual sort of cash is out there at any given moment, by some amount. So, how much bigger is the money supply than the monetary base, the amount of actual cash that's flowing out there, times what equals the money supply? Well, this bit, okay, the question mark, can be found by, it turns out, if you did all the math behind this, you can just take a look, or you can divide 1 by the reserve ratio. Another way of putting this is 100%. 100% divided by the ratio. And the reserve ratio is just how much of their money, what percent of their money banks hold in reserve. So in our example, we had a reserve ratio of 20%. Banks always held on to 20%. So 1 divided by 20%, 1/5, okay, which is actually the same thing as 100% divided by 20% equals 5. Okay, that was our multiplier. So here, 5 times the monetary base equals the money supply. So what was our initial deposit? Our initial deposit in that example was $1,000, okay, times 5. So the total amount of money created by that $1,000 deposit is actually $5,000 if you added all those amounts up. Now, this actually might not be, this multiplier is probably not going to be perfectly correct for the reason that, well, that people don't always put money in banks. Okay, money held as cash, right? So if you're the kind of person who buries money in the backyard, okay, you're going to lower that multiplier by doing that. So it turns out that in the United States economy, the multiplier might be something like 2 to 3. Okay, and some of that is this, and some of it is banks, lending more or less than they have to. Okay, actually, a lot of times there's an amount that banks are forced to hold on to, lower than 20% usually, by, say, the Federal Reserve. Okay, and they say, well, you have to hold this much, this percent of your deposits as reserves and not lend it out. And so you could change that amount in order to try to change the multiplier. But of course, even that might not work perfectly because people might still hold just as much as they used to. So if they held 20% before and you said, no, you can lend out 95% of your of your, the reserve ratio, you only have to hold 5%. And the banks might say, well, maybe we can do that, but we want to play it safe and only lend out 80% and hold on to 20% still. But the money multiplier formula is 1, or 100%, divided by the percentage of deposits that banks hold in reserve.